Hi and welcome to this week's Something for the Weekend. I'm Tony, Sales Manager here at Martin Lynch & Sons. And this week, I'm kind of hoping that you stumbled across the video and thought, do you know what, I used to do ham radio? Because we're going to be taking a look at getting back into amateur radio if you've been away for quite a few years. Well, you might remember some of these radios here, so stuff like the FT101, for example, or the little 208 as well. Well, if you do, it's time to get back into the hobby. There's never been a better time to get back into the hobby. Numbers have increased over the last few years due to COVID, etc. People being locked in their houses, finding radios up in the loft, popping into the shed and going, oh, what's that? Well, I'm going to try and help you get back into the hobby and talk about some of the changes which may have happened over the last maybe 20 or 30 years even. So before we get there, number one, do you have a call sign? I think I may have had a call sign. Yep, that's right. You may have taken your RA as it was back then, maybe back in the 70s or 80s. Maybe you were at college, you've done it at college, went to local technical college, for example, or maybe you're at university and they had a radio club and you decided to take your license there. Or maybe you were just interested in the hobby from shortwave listening, maybe even, CB radio, etc. And you've got over and thought, I'm going to do that amateur radio license, took it, life's caught up with you, all of a sudden, you've got some kids, you've got married, you've travelled the world with work, and now you've got a bit of spare time on your hand. Well, first things first, see if you can find those certificates from the RAE, have a rummage around the boxes in the loft, go through the document cases, and if you do, and you can find your call sign, give Ofcom a call. Now, Ofcom have a wonderful website when it comes to renewing your license, and I strongly recommend that you visit their website and go through all their details about getting your license valid or revalidated again, I should say. Now, if you don't remember your call sign, what are you going to do? Well, I'm not too sure. I'll tell you what to do. Again, contact Ofcom. Yep, they're very helpful at Ofcom. And they can often look back on records and maybe even find that original call sign for you. Now, the great thing is, if you can find that call sign or you remember it, you can normally get that reissued. So yes, you can go back to being, just say for example, G4XYZ or G7XYZ. And even better news, if you are a G7, well, things have changed. Oh yeah, things have changed. Now, do you remember you used to be on those repeaters on 2 meters, 70 SEMs, maybe doing a bit of simplex on VHF, UHF? Well, no need to learn that Morse anymore. You can now get onto HF radio. Yep, you can come and join the real amateurs, as they say, and get yourself talking all around the world with the lovely HF transceiver. Anyway, let's move on from this now. And what about if you don't have a license? So, yep, you've been a shortwave listener. As I said, you've maybe been interested in other aspects of radio. Quite easy nowadays. So there's 3 licenses now in the UK structure. Number 1 is the foundation license, which is, I won't say it's very easy. You're going to have some knowledge of radio, but you can do this online when it comes to training. There's books available. You can join local clubs. There's online clubs if you don't want to go out and about. And you basically answer, 20 or so questions about radio and about the conditions of operating radio in the UK. And you can get onto HF. Yep, onto HF, onto VHF, UHF. A broad spectrum of the hobby is open to you with a foundation license. Now, there's a few restrictions there. So power-wise, you're going to be restricted to sort of 25 watts maximum on HF and VHF, UHF. And you're not going to be able to operate abroad. Now, it might not be a major thing to you, you might have got fed up with travelling because you've been doing that with work. But you can get onto the radio and you can get on really, really, really simply nowadays with a foundation license. So moving on from that is the intermediate license. This will give you 100 watts output on HF and VHF, UHF, obviously depending on whereabouts you are. There's some restrictions in VHF, UHF. But it's a little bit more technical when you take the exam for this. So there's a few more questions involved. You're going to know the basics from the foundation license, but it's a lovely simple progression. and one of those exams that really does put you a little bit deeper into the hobby and kind of shows that, you know, I want to get on with this and I want to become that full licensee. So finally, the advanced license. What does the advanced license give you nowadays? Well, the advanced license will give you access obviously to HF, VHF, UHF, you know, higher frequencies, and which is the same with the other licenses. However, on HF you're going to get a kilowatt nowadays. So if you want to go into contesting, for example, you know, that's the thing that all the amateurs get on the air and they try and make as many contacts as possible, and you get points for rare countries, you know, you'll get dupes, etc. And you're fully active, you're working at the hobby, let's put it that way. But great fun when it comes to contesting. Or you may be looking to work DX, or you may just want to have a rag-chew. And if you're not too sure what a rag-chew is, you know, it's just we're having a general chat with some friends or some newfound friends in another country. So advanced license will give you access to all of the aspects of this wonderful hobby. And as I said, check out Ofcom's website, check out the RSGB website, 100% when it comes to the licensing and also what is available within this wonderful hobby of ours. And obviously check out Martin Lynch and Son's previous videos, because that will give you a kind of indication as what you can do. So advanced license, as I said, is your next step up from the intermediate. And with that license, yes, it's going to be a little bit more technical. It is becoming a little bit more modern now as well, so you will get questions relating to SDR. Now, what is SDR? You know, software defined radio. We'll have a little chat about that later on in this video. But yeah, you can get yourself fully licensed, become a fully fledged radio amateur, what would have been, you know, the original RAE back in the day. And the good thing with that as well, with the advanced license, is you can operate abroad. So if you want to go to a rare country and you want to be that station that everyone chases, it can be done, and it can be done quite simply. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the changes in equipment over the years. So bear with me while I get some equipment out. Okay, so as you can see, I've now moved the radios across, moved some out of the way, and we're just going to have like a little look as to what kind of some of the changes are when it comes to the equipment. And now I understand that, you know, some of you may just be getting into the hobby, you know, from being a shortwave listener. However, if you are licensed and you're thinking, well, you know, I've got this old radio at home, and or I had an old radio and I remember using it, you know, why do I need to buy a new one? Well, several differences. I'm not going to go into all of them, otherwise we'd be here for about a week. So let's take a look, for example, at this Yaesu FT208. Now, this was an amazing handheld back in the day. If you'd had one of these, you would have paid an absolute fortune for it. Works on analog, so pop your antenna on the top with a BNC connection, knobs on the top for volume, squelch, and your direct input. I mean, that's quite snazzy really, with a direct input on the front there for your frequency. And that's about all you could do with it really, let's be honest. You could have a chat with someone down the road, you could stand on a hill with it, and you could use probably the local repeater, which would have been using a 1750 tone burst, for those that remember that and remember doing the old whistle to open up the repeaters. So, any good for nowadays? Well, you could still use it for simplex. You're going to struggle when it comes to repeaters, because they now use a CT-CSS tone to access a repeater. So this stops you opening up repeater after repeater after repeater if conditions allow. And that's about it really. So I'm kind of looking at it and thinking, well, yeah, I could use it, I could have a little chat. Am I going to get the most out of the hobby with this? Probably not, but it could get you started. So what can I expect with a modern day piece of equipment? Now it just so happens, let me get some power into this, yes. Kenwood's THD-75, for example. So this is the latest all singing, all dancing handheld, which when you look at the prices, it looks quite pricey. People have been saying, oh, it's very expensive for a handheld. However, compare it with these original radios, it's not far off. And if you look at Martin's old video that he done a couple of weeks ago, prices are actually cheaper nowadays than what they were back then. So you can't bring that into the argument. So what does this give you that this doesn't? So this radio here will give you VHF and UHF, so 2 meters and 70 sems. You'll get 5 watts output, which is great. It's enough power to, you know, work simplex, etc. Direct entry on the keypad, as you'd have on that. So you're thinking, well, Tony, there's not massive changes, is it? Apart from you get 2 bands. So it's like having 2 handhelds back in the day. Lovely colour screen. And you can connect USB to this. So as with most of your modern electronic products, you can charge, connect it to a PC, or via USB. Also, this is a wideband receiver as well. So you can listen to shortwave amateur bands or shortwave broadcasts, multi-mode. So using single sideband, or you can go onto AM through this little handheld. Yep. Now cast your mind back to when you first took your license, and this is the way you got into HF. Now imagine carrying that around with you in your pocket. Not going to happen, is it? Also, modern day handhelds. How have they changed? Well, they've changed quite a lot in the way that they're used. So as I said before, with these old handhelds, you would have done simplex, or you may have done repeater work. You can still do that, but the repeater side of it has really changed. So, with modern day repeaters, there's now digital repeaters. And when I say digital repeaters, you probably think, well, what does that mean? It basically means that these radios will now encode into a digital transmission, and there's a few available. So you have DMR, for example, there's Yaesu System Fusion, and there's D-Star. So this one, for example, is D-Star, which is a great, I mean, I like D-Star, I'll be honest with you. And it's basically, the way that they all work is kind of the same in that you can transmit into a repeater now. That repeater will then be connected to the internet, and then you can access repeaters and what they call nodes, which is basically someone where they've set up their own radio at home and connected it to the internet, and then you can send your signal out into that country. So with this little handheld now, no longer are you talking to Sid down the road on the repeater. You could be talking to Sid in Sydney. So massive, massive changes, opens up the world to you. And, you know, if you just want to get into the hobby just for a great chat, just on the radio, you might be mobile. This is a great way of doing it. Great way of doing it on VHF, UHF now. So a lot of people will say VHF and UHF has kind of quietened down since the heydays of the 70s and the 80s. It hasn't. They've just gone digital. Anyway, let's move these out of the way. And we're going to talk about HF. So you may remember radios, well, you will remember if you've been licensed, the 101. Absolutely amazing radio back in the day. Now, that would have got you on HF. As I said, it would have been a struggle to go portable with these. I know a lot of you did, and I know some of you went mobile as well. I've seen some top band mobile stations with the 101s in some pictures that Martin had. Phenomenal. Right, what could you do with this? Well, you could get onto HF. You could do stuff like RTTY. However, you were going to have to change this and, you know, add interfaces, etc. Lots of equipment. I mean, we've got the old Tonneau unit back there, and it's a massive computer and a big screen. But, you know, it was the beginning of the digital age. So this will get you on the air. Yes, you can still use it on HF. Yes, you're probably going to do a great job with it. However, in today's modern noisy environments, especially, you know, where houses are packed together, you're going to need a little bit more help nowadays. So if you're from the 80s, maybe 90s, you're going to remember that you could get filters, which would often help you. You could plug them into the radio. All that's changed. And if I take this, Yaesu's FT710, now this is the field variant, which means you can go out and about if need be. They do one with a speaker, which is the ML&S version as well. This radio here will give you HF and 6 meters. Yep, so you've got an added band as well on top, and it will also give you 4 meters, which, depending on when you were licensed, you may or may not remember the introduction of 4 meters into the UK. Now, as I said, and I will keep mentioning during this video, check out the RSGB website when it comes to details with regards to band plans, where to operate, what changes have been done with the band plans over the years, and we've also got some band plan videos here at mlands.tv. So, difference between these two radios. One's pretty obvious. Look at the size difference. So if you think back to when you had your original equipment, just the size of it, it's just huge. Most of the radios were absolutely massive. when it came to HF operating. Obviously you'd have valves inside as well. Now these are all transistorized. This radio is actually an SDR. Now I spoke about that earlier, which is basically a software defined radio. So rather than be a super HEP radio, this one is SDR, so everything is done within software, within the radio, and we've got some videos with regards to a breakdown on software defined radio. So if you really want to go into more detail, you're quite technical, they're the videos to check out. But on this video, we're not going to go into that much detail. So what will this radio give me that this one doesn't? So we've mentioned the filters. This has DSP. Now that's quite a big change from back in the days. And digital signal processing basically means you can get in, you've got a noisy signal, you can tailor it, you can contour it, all with the software within the radio. Now that's going to help you get noisy signals nice and clean, and you'll be able to work those rare DX stations if need be. Now on top of this, you can also out this to a larger monitor. So you'll see at the front here, gone are the days of the digital displays or the rotary displays and dials, and we now have these lovely kind of TFT style screens, full color. They have a scope on this which gives you an indication of what's happening on the bands. So before you'd be like that, and when you've gone all the way to the right, you may have missed this DX station on the left. By the time you've gone back, he may have gone, and back and forth, etc. So you're always hunting for that DX, and that's kind of where the terminology of hunting for DX comes from. Now you can kind of look for DX, and you'll see it come up on the screen, and you'll see signals come and go. Oh, there's a station there, there's a station there. Or if you're operating, say, 10 meters, for example, or even 6 meters, the magic band, as we all know it, which isn't always open, you can quickly look on the band and say, yep, that's open, brilliant, away we go. So this is a great improvement. It's only been a few years that we've, had these screens on the front of radios, and it's kind of going to be there forever now. I really do think so. As I said, you can put it out onto a big monitor, if you've got poor eyesight, not a problem. Antenna-wise, both the same with these units. One antenna socket on the back, so you can link that through to your antenna. Digital. Can you do digital with this radio? Is it a lot easier than setting up this with the old Tonner unit? Yes. Yep, loads of digital modes available on HF now. Most common one which is being used is FT8. Again, get yourself on Google, get yourself on YouTube. That's going to be your friend when it comes to learning these new digital modes. RTTY is still happening. Slow Scan TV, PSK. There's a few dedicated PSK users, if you remember PSK. How easy is it to get on? Very easy nowadays. Most of us have got a PC or a Mac at home. Software's freely available online. USB connectivity on these radios. You plug a USB cable into this, one into your PC, download the software, away you go. As easy as that, and it really, really is easy. So differences in these, this is going to do near enough everything you want it to do, with an additional bonus. Remember when you had to have your antenna resonant and it had to be absolutely perfect? You may have had your G5RV and you're just making sure everything was right. Built-in antenna tuners nowadays, so you can run antennas like long wires, your G5 obviously if you still want to do that. Vertical antennas, obviously you need to get it resonant if you can. However, if it's a little bit of a mismatch, these radios do have a built-in tuner, so again, you're not having to buy another ancillary device to add on to it. So it's going to keep the footprint of the shack down if you've got, a small shack, or maybe you're operating from the garage, etc. This is going to be perfect for you. So that's kind of your key difference with HF radios, in that, number one, they've got a lot smaller. Yes, there's still some large radios around. The difference really between the large and the small radios is you're operating menus on the smaller ones, and you're going to have more buttons on the front for the large ones, so it's easy accessible if you're doing those contests, for example. Moving on from this, let's go on to the next bit. Antennas. What can you use for antennas nowadays? Okay, now the table's clear. Let's get on to antennas. So VHF, UHF, nice and simple if you can operate from home. Nice little vertical, such as the X30 or the X50N, for example, will get you on, and that will cover both your VHF and your UHF bands. If you want to do tri-band, look at Diamond's V2000. Now they're pretty hard to get hold of, but they do come up from time to time in store. Also, if you want to go mobile, there's loads of mobile antennas around. Too many for me to go through now, but again, check the website. Mobile antennas, VHF, UHF, can't go wrong. Now, I know what you're thinking. I want to get on HF. 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 Well, to get on HF, let's keep it simple. Bit of that and one of these. So you can look on our website, and there's a video by Richard from our sales team with regards to this setup. It's quite easy. It's a bit of Dipoflex antenna wire and a 49:1 undone. Pretty easy to do. Unscrew this, pop the wire onto there, run a bit of coax on, run a little radial or to earth on the bottom, and with as little as sort of 10-20 meters of wire down the garden, and you can be on HF from anything from sort of 80 meters up to 10 meters, which is, you know, the most active of the HF bands at the moment. So I know what you're thinking. Oh, my neighbour's going to moan. No, I mean, look at this wire. It's really, really thin, really thin. So it's dark, it's thin. You can get that up, you can run it along the fence if need be. It's, you know, it's not an issue, and that's going to get you up and running. Now, if you want to go a little bit bigger, or you haven't got the length in the garden, I for certain struggle to run a wire in my postage stamp size garden. So when it comes to verticals, what can you do with verticals? Well, we've got stuff like the Hustler 6BTV, 5BTV and 4BTV, which cover a number of bands depending on which model. Anything up to about 26, 27 feet in length. They're going to get you onto HF, and they're going to perform really, really well. You're going to see antennas which claim to cover every band from top band to 6 meters. This antenna is amazing. It's just one bit of metal and a little matching network on the bottom. Let's be honest, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. It's going to be a compromise. However, if it's all you can get up, maybe look at the wire again. You know, even buy a DX Commander pole, for example, and stick a bit of wire up there and a matching network yourself. Save yourself a few £100 and get on the air quite simply. And again, we're not going to go into too much detail with the antennas, just for the fact that, well, there's so many videos on YouTube, and you're watching this on YouTube and it only takes a second to search. Loop antennas, great if you're for limited space and a noisy environment. Again, look at our Zero Loop. You can look at stuff like the Wonder Wand antenna, Wonder Loop. You know, very simple, but if you're operating low power, perfect. And then also beam antennas and Yagis. For those of you that have been to the shop, or maybe even, you know, kind of thought about coming to the store, you all know that we've got the massive Yagi on the top of the roof. Now, we can't all have those, but if you can, I suggest you go that way. So antennas, we're going to kind of leave it there. I don't know what you used to use, you know, when you were licensed back in the day, but if you want to leave a little comment, please do so, because it's always interesting to learn. And obviously we can't change physics. However, designs change over time as we progress. Like you said, everyone's using the 49:1 at the moment. When I was first licensed, you know, sort of 10, 15 years ago, in fact, it could have been 20 years ago now, everyone was using the 9:1. So it's horses for courses, it's what you like. And antennas, we could talk for hours and hours about it. And as I said, there's some great YouTubers out there, loads in the UK as well, which sort of promote antenna design. I mean, after all, you need is matching networks and wire. So we're going to leave that there, and we're going to move on now and kind of say, what's it going to cost? Okay, so yes, how much is it going to cost to get back into this wonderful hobby of ours? Well, maybe you just want to dip your toe in, start listening. You know, that's a very, very affordable way of doing it. And I know it's not much to look at, but this is like a whole shack in a box for when it comes to receive. So this is an SDR play RSP unit. This is the 1A version. Now this is sub £100. So cast your mind back to those sort of prices you were paying back in the day for a receiver, and this will cover a vast spectrum of frequencies. A vast spectrum of frequencies. As usual, full details are on the website. Check it because there's a big range of SDR receivers, but you can basically cover HF, VHF, UHF, up into the gigahertz with these. So no matter what you want to do when it comes to listening to radio, you're going to get it covered with this. Now, you're kind of thinking, well, there's no speaker, there's a USB socket, Tony, and an SMA antenna connection. How does it work? Well, this is the beauty of SDR that we spoke about earlier, software defined radio. So USB socket here, put a lead in, pop it into your PC, download the relevant software from SDR Play, put an antenna on here, whether it be a wire antenna. You could even just put a whip antenna if you just want to, get yourself going. You'll be surprised at what you can receive, because the sensitivity of today's modern receivers and transceivers is phenomenal. And you can have a listen. So sub £100, you can get yourself back onto the bands. Yes, you're only going to be listening, but it might fire up that fire in your belly to go and get going again into the hobby. And it's a great hobby, as you know. So moving on from this, I want to transmit, Tony. Well, we've seen the handhelds. So handhelds can range from anything from the very, very cheap and cheerful handhelds, which are around dual band handhelds, which are great for getting your feet wet back into the hobby. However, I normally say go for something that's going to last you a little bit longer if you can. And for £50, £50 to £60, you can buy a nice handheld, a nice Wixon handheld, dual band as well, VHF, UHF, which will give you loads of features. Some of them give you air band receive. At that price point, amazing. They do kits with all the accessories you may ever need, so you don't have to worry about adding extra batteries. It's just a great way of doing it, and it will get you on the air. Now, if you want to go digital, like the THD75 that we had earlier, ICOM's ID50 or ID52, maybe Yaesu's FT5, you want to go the system fusion routes. You could go for an FT70 even. Now, prices of those range from anything from around about £170, £180 up to £700 plus. Yep, I said £700 plus. Look at what you're getting. So handhelds, make your mind up. I always say, if you're going to go into the hobby and you remember it for the HF side, don't bother with a handheld. Go straight into HF if you can. Go straight into HF and you're not going to lose the love for the hobby. You're going to be there and the world's going to be open to you. And what we often find, obviously being a shop, we have a lot of newcomers coming in and they run in, they've seen the adverts. Oh, yeah, I'm going to get a handheld, I'm going to be up, I'm licensed now, it's brilliant. They get on, they buy an analog handheld, and they don't speak to anyone. They might speak to the same guy on the repeater, and that's it. So try and get access to the world, because that's what the hobby is about, if you can. So price point. Yeah, you're in a shop, you're going to tell me that you to buy the most expensive radio. No, not really. If you look on our website, our used selection of radios, you will find radios from all different eras. What we try and do, we've done that a lot more recently, is we try and keep the very old stuff to one corner. If you want to give it a go, give it a go. There's no warranty. We can't guarantee it. It's been around for years. It's a bit like us. It's a little bit worn, and it may play up every now and then. However, all of the stuff that's warranted on the website is worth looking at. You can save yourself, well, sometimes you can save yourself thousands of pounds on a new piece of kit, depending on whether it's a flagship model, etc. So, check the used site. Link is being shown as we talk. And that's a great way of saving money and getting back into the hobby, just in case you're not too sure. Now, if you definitely want to go into the hobby, number one, before we give you the prices, come to the shop if you can. The shop is open 6 days a week. We're open from 8:30 in the morning until 5 PM Monday to Friday, and 9 o'clock until 4:30 on a Saturday. And it's a lovely emporium. You get free coffee, there's air conditioning, as Martin always says, and we all love radio here, and we can chat about it for hours, as you're probably looking at your watch. whilst watching this video. So if you can't make it down, Tony, have you got any suggestions? Yes, I've got suggestions. So I always say it's going to cost you about £1,000 if you want to go new, to get into the hobby and get into the hobby for, you know, a sensible price and using sensible equipment. So give me an example, Tony. Well, one thing you're going to need is a power supply. This is the simple MyDEL MP-30 power supply. It's going to give you 30 amps. Now, if you remember back to when you did your exam calculations, 100 watts, probably 20 or so amps. So this is going to be fine for a full power HF radio. No issues there. If you're running QRP, it's going to be perfect. 5 watts, not an issue. Can you remember what QRP is? Yep. Operating on low power, seeing how far you can get. And with QRP in mind, I'm going to kind of start there for you, because you might have a lot of neighbours, or you know, you might have a partner that you live with that doesn't really want radio in the house. So portable is a great option when it comes to this hobby. And boy, has it changed. Boy, has it changed. You remember the old FT290? No, not anymore. So you can get a radio like this, which is the Xiegu X6100. Again, I'm not going to go into full details. There's plenty of reviews. We've done reviews with this. I've used it in the field. However, this is going to give you HF and 6 meters in a handy portable package. Now remember that 101 that was there? This does the same and more. Built-in antenna tuning unit as well. Has a built-in microphone if need be, if you want to use it as a kind of walkie-talkie, not a problem. USB connectivity as well, so if you want to do those digital modes, not a problem. Again, external microphone you can plug in, so you can use it as a base station. It's got little legs on the back here, so it can sit up nice and smart. Power output, so 5 watts, so we go QRP at 5 watts, let's say 5 watts with this, and we'll try and budget for a 5 watt station. So we can basically buy this power supply, this radio, and also an antenna. Now we kind of recommend, if you're going to go portable, something like the JPC antenna. I've not got that with me because it's going to be a little bit large for shop. Here it is. This radio will get you on the air and you'll be working the world. Yes, it's going to be, as I say, QRP, it's going to be a little bit like fishing, but you will be active on the air. You can do your digital modes and you're up and running. Now, price point with this, all of this kit under £1,000, and quite a bit under £1,000. How much under £1,000, Sonny? Well, it's going to be just over £800 for the kit that you need, which would include the Coax as well to get you up and running, connect to the antenna. So just over £800 and you're on the air, you're operating HF, and the world is your oyster. Now, may you want to spend a little bit more money? There are other options. You could spend, if you want to go over that £1,000 and just spend maybe another couple of £100 or so, you can look at the newer version of this, which is the 6200. That will cost you just a little bit more, a couple of £100, as I said. And also in the Xiegu range is the G90. Now, a lot of people love the G90 because you've got a little bit more power, so you've got 20 watts of power. It looks more like a mobile transceiver. Again, it's got the built-in ATU, you've got a little screen on the front, and it's a fairly robust radio. You could do firmware updates if need be, if anything changes. But the G90 is a great choice as well. Again, it's going to cost you just that little bit more, but you're going to be on the air for, as I said, around about that £1,000 mark, which I normally say is the key price point for starting the hobby if you want to buy new. Okay, moving on, let's spend a bit more money. I like the sound of that. Now, moving on to kind of a mid-range. Now, a lot of established amateurs will say, well, Tony, you've got the FT710 back out. Is that more budgety range, would you say? You know, is that kind of the first step into to HF on the Yaesu's current range? Well, yes and no. So performance-wise, as I said, these radios are exceptional on performance. And if you've ever seen the Xiegu charts, if you haven't, Google it. That gives you a kind of rundown on receiver sensitivity and performance. This rates really highly on there. So I'm going to kind of put this as a mid-range when it comes to the price point, and for the bits that you can put with it. Price-wise, let's just cut straight to the point. It's literally just over £1,000 again. So give or take £100 or so, you can have MP30 power supply, this lovely Yaesu FT710, now you remember what I told you that it does. Some coax to get you going, so 10 meters of coax, the wire we discussed, and the 49:1. So there you go, you've got a station up and running. Now, I wanted to call that the mid price point. It's still quite within the budget really of that £1,000, but this is an ideal starter setup, absolutely perfect, and you'll be very, very impressed with the performance. Yes, you're probably going to have to make an antenna for 6 meters or for 4 meters, but come on, that's what the hobby's about. Now, got a little bit more money, a few more £100, check out this package. £2,000. Straight to the point. What can you get for around £2,000 if you want to buy a package? Well, we've kept the MP30 because it's just a sturdy power supply, and as with most power supplies, if you buy one, you're going to buy it for life, and it's going to do the job for you. So we're sticking with the MP30. The radio's changed, as you can see, so we're going with Kenwood's TS-590SG. Now, a lot of people are going to say to me, Tony, why didn't you go for Yaesu's FTDX10, which is the kind of big brother, big sister of the 710 that we had? Well, kind of the reason we're watching this video is you're getting back into the hobby. You might be really scared by now that I've shown you all of those flashing lights, all of those menu systems that are going to be on these modern radios, and you just think, oh, I'm not sure if it's for me now. I might put you on the back foot when it comes to getting, you know, back into the hobby. Well, the 590SG is one of the most simplest radios to operate that's on the market nowadays. So very, very simple UI. In other words, what does that mean, Tony? Well, it means you haven't got all of that flashy scope on there. You don't have to go through menu after menu after menu, but when you do have to go into menus, it scrolls across the screen on this one and tells you exactly what you're changing. It indicates the knob that you need to turn by a little red light above it. So this is kind of like going back to that 101, a little few extras. So it will do CW decode. If you want to do your digital modes, you're feeling brave, plug a USB kit lead into it, download the software, and away you go. Very, 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 very easy with the 590SG. Yes, the FTDX10 is a wonderful radio, brilliant performer, around the same sort of price point as this. However, if you're coming back into the hobby, definitely worth checking out the 590SG. And as I always said, you're more than welcome to come into store and we can go through everything with you. So package-wise, as I said, just over £2,000. Is going to get you the power supply, it's going to get you the radio, it's going to get you upgraded coax from that last run of coax that we saw, which is our Messi and Poloni Ultraflex 7 cable. 10 meters of this, absolutely perfect for HF. Loss-wise, it's phenomenal when you look at the old coaxes that we used to use, the old RG58s. This is superb. Comes with the plugs fitted already, so you don't have to worry about learning how to solder, etc. And antenna-wise, what are you going to use an antenna? Well, with this package, I've gone for the Hustler 5B TV. It's going to give you 40 meters upwards. Very simple installation. So you just connect your coax via the adapter onto the antenna and then onto the back of the radio. Make sure it's all running fine. Check the SWR. If you need to do a little bit of tuning, you can do with the built-in ATU. And away you go. And that is a beautiful package, and that should last you forever if need be. However, you're probably going to want to change your radio at some point. And if you do, let's take a look at another package for those of you with a little bit more. Now, you're in a lucky position where you've got a little bit of that. You've worked hard. You want to treat yourself. You've dreamt of those flagship radios in the past and thought, oh, I could do with that 101. Oh, Icon 7800, Kenwood's TL Linear, the Icon PW1, Yaesu's Quadra, the 1000 MP. I remember them all. Well, it's a lot easier to get into a big flagship radio nowadays, and it's a lot less expensive. So something like the Icon IC7610 comes with all of the modern features that you're going to require in a HF transceiver. It's got the ATU, it's got the USB connectivity, you can do your digital modes, it's got screen out, it's got a lovely colour display. You know, what more do you want from a radio? Performance figures, yeah, it's going to knock spots off some of the cheaper radios, so you can hunt that DX, you can work all those countries you've dreamt of speaking to. 7610, what's it going to cost you? Around about £3,000 new. Now, Yaesu do a flagship radio, that's the FTDX 101. They do a 100 watt version and they do a 200 watt version. A little bit of extra power. Prices of those again range from £3,000 up to around £4,000. Kenwood have a flagship, Kenwood's TS-890, and the TS-890 again around £4,000. Again, all going to cover the same sort of thing. You're going to get 4 meters on some of them, some you're not. So the Icon won't do 4 meters, for example. The FT101 will, Kenwood's TS-890 will. There are only radios coming from Icon very soon, so you never know, it might change. Now, you spent £4,000 on a radio. You want a little bit more power. Well, linears, they're still available. And you can spend anything from around about £1,500 up to £7,000 or £8,000, depending on what you want to do. It's entirely up to you. So you could have that full kilowatt station if you're an advanced license holder and work whatever you want within reason. Antenna-wise, Yagis, take a look at the Step IR. If you've got a bit of land, as I said, you've worked hard, you want to spend that money, then look at the Step IR antenna. You can have a fully automated station at home, so you can literally just turn the knob, press a button, it tunes it, it does that, it fires up the linear, away you go, you're working everything you can hear. And everyone wants to hear you, and you can be heard because you've got that extra power and that superb antenna. Now, before you spend that money, yes, I'm going to stop you. Don't go clicking on that website going, yep, I'm going to have that, I'm going to have that, I'm going to have that, I'm going to have that. Give the guys a call here and let's discuss it. Let's see what we can do. Let's put a package together for you. If you can, come down to the store, have a play. It's going to be a big chunk of money that you're going to be spending, but we want to make sure it's right for you. So we'll run through everything that you've got at home. And this goes the same with any of the packages that you've seen. So even if you're going to spend £500, £1,000, please, please, please speak to an amateur first, whether that be at your local club, whether it's someone that you know who's been licensed, but you know, you can speak to us. We kind of like to develop a relationship with our customers here at Martin & Sons. We've been going 30 odd years. Martin's always done it the same way. And I mean, I know for certain I've been to various shops in the past, not this one, I hasten to add, where I've got items that are still sitting in a box behind my desk here that I'll keep meaning to sell because I never needed them in the first place. So please, if you want to do a package, you're thinking, yeah, I want to get back into the hobby, please give us a call at the store or pop in and see us. As I said, we're open near enough every day of the week bar Sundays, and let's have a chat. You know, we're all in the hobby, we're all in it together, and we want to help each other out, and you know, let's see what we can do for you. Not a problem. Now, if you haven't already liked and subscribed the page, may I ask that you do that, because we do see the figures, and the figures tell us that a lot of you aren't pressing that subscribe button, which means you're going to miss out on any of the future content that we do. Anyway, I know it's been a long one. If you're licensed already, hopefully there's some information here. If there's any information I've missed and you're licensed already, and anything that you think could help anyone coming back into the hobby, please pop it down in the comments down below. Okay, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I know you're going to do it. And we'll see you very, very soon. See you back in the hobby.